What is going on, you beautiful people? It is Mr. Mediocre here, aka Sticky. You guys have probably been wondering where I've been over the past, 3-ish months? Well, I'm gonna just be honest. I don't want to make uninspired videos, so I really wasn't planning on putting out content if there was like really nothing going on. Because I remember back in the days when I was making videos on a consistent basis, I would have to find videos to make every single week, like at least two every single week. And I feel like I was putting out kind of stale content, just making videos for the sake of making videos when I didn't really have much to say. But we're about 2 weeks away, I want to say, around there, give or take, from the first preseason game against the Bears. So, I mean, I think it's time to kind of get the ball rolling on this Texans season. I know I didn't make a video about the draft, but honestly, the reason why I didn't make a video about the draft was because I felt like I would have done the draft differently. I mean, I'm obviously not a GM, but personally, I feel like the Texans still have gaping holes at safety and defensive tackle that I feel like they should have addressed way sooner, but they really didn't. I was just upset at the fact that the first pick was a corner that really, in my opinion, isn't all that. Although, that was my initial opinion, but apparently he's been like a superstar in like rookie minicamp and all that, so that's always good. Like, I really, really like whenever these young players prove me wrong, so like, I'd rather these young players prove me wrong than prove me right and not be good. So, yeah, he's been doing good in a minicamp, and then the second pick they picked in the draft was an offensive tackle, which to me, I was like, what in the world are you doing? But I mean, like, if you look at the draft as a total, as a whole, it's clear that they were going like for depth, but I feel like they still could have added more starting talent as opposed to depth. That's just me though. Anyways, though, since we're back, one of the things I do want to talk about is this brutal Texans schedule and how I think it's going to play out, how they're going to do. And I mean, obviously, last year they had a last place schedule. This year they have a more difficult schedule, you could say. But I feel like something a lot of people don't really take into consideration about last year's schedule is just how many teams the Texans kept out of the playoffs. Like, if you think about it, just off the top of my head, they kept out the Jaguars, the Colts, the Saints, and I'm sure there was like another team out there that they kept out of the playoffs by beating them. Like, all these teams were like borderline playoff teams, so it's not like the Texans had like this super easy schedule because they didn't beat all these playoff teams. But nonetheless, let's get into this 2024 Texans schedule. Right off the bat, the Texans travel to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. That's a W. That's a W, and I'm not gonna go super in depth into this game because there's a video that I'm about to drop probably sometime this week or next week regarding the Colts. So I'm gonna just say the Texans are gonna take the W on this one. Week 2, they come home, home opener against the Caleb Williams led Chicago Bears. I think Caleb Williams is going to be a very, very, very good quarterback. I think Caleb Williams will go down as the best quarterback in Bears history. I know a lot of you guys are probably like, oh, what are you talking about, Sticky? Like, what do you mean, best quarterback in Bears history? I mean, Jay Cutler is technically the best quarterback in Bears history. So, I mean, being the best quarterback in Bears history isn't really, anything amazing, I guess you could say. I could probably go over there and play quarterback for the Chicago Bears, and I'll be considered a top 5 Bears quarterback, and I'm like 5'7", But yeah, but I think Caleb Williams is gonna be very good. But I feel like we got the Bears early enough in the season to where they haven't really gelled yet. The Texans are coming off a playoff year. Most of the players are coming back. So the Texans already have playing experience with each other, to whereas the Bears, they have a rookie quarterback. So I think the Texans take out the Bears, start off the season 2-0. Week 3, the Texans travel to Minnesota to take on the Minnesota Vikings. And honestly, this is a game the Texans should win, but I feel like this is one of those games that the Texans, they just lose. Like they just find a way to lose this game. The Texans have never beat Minnesota, and honestly, I don't think 2024 is going to be the year that they beat Minnesota. Should they beat Minnesota? Absolutely. On paper, the Texans are a way better team, but I just have a gut feeling that this is going to be one of them ones. If you get what I'm saying. Week 4, the Texans come back home, take on the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's a win. I don't see a scenario where the Jaguars are able to pull this one off. I mean, Texans are back at home. Start 2-1. City's hype. Loud stadium. C.J. Stroud is Trevor Lawrence's daddy. Trevor Lawrence is... Yeah, I'll probably make a video about that. That contract the Jaguars just gave Trevor Lawrence, a.k.a. Blake Bortles with long hair. But yeah, I think the Texans definitely win that game. Week 5, however, the Texans take on the Buffalo Bills here in Houston. I think this is a win as well. I think the Texans easily take out the Bills. I don't think the Bills are that team anymore. I really don't. I feel like the Bills' ship has sailed. Their team has definitely gotten weaker after this past offseason. Don't get me wrong, Josh Allen's a really good quarterback, but the rest of the team, I mean, it's kind of questionable. I feel like they lost a lot of pieces, including Stephon Diggs, who's now on the Texans. I think the Texans take out the Bills here in Houston. Week 6, the Texans travel to New England to destroy the Patriots. The Texans are going to go up there and they're going to embarrass the Patriots. These aren't the Bill Belichick Patriots. These aren't the Tom Brady Patriots. The Patriots are one of the worst teams in the football league. So, Texans are going to take care of business against the Patriots. Week 7, the Texans travel to Green Bay to take on the Jordan Love-led Green Bay Packers. Honestly, this is probably one of my favorite games on the schedule because I think the Green Bay Packers and the Houston Texans are two of the more exciting young teams in the NFL. You got Jordan Love versus C.J. Stroud, two up-and-coming young quarterbacks. Unfortunately, I think the Texans drop this one. I mean, the Texans are a very good team, but they're going to drop some games. I already have them losing to Minnesota, have them losing to the Green Bay Packers. The Texans usually tend to struggle against the NFC teams until I see things changing. NFC games, I'm going to kind of judge them a little bit differently, if you catch my drift, I guess. Week 8, the Texans come back home to take on the Indianapolis Colts. And honestly, I could see this one going either way as well, like the Green Bay Packers game. But I'm going to go lean towards an L. And this is just based off history as well. Do I think the Texans are a better team than the Indianapolis Colts? Absolutely. But this is also a divisional game. And historically, the Texans and Colts, they either sweep us or we split. I think only once the Texans ever swept the Colts. That was like back in 2015, maybe 2016. Yeah, so I think the Texans and Colts split this year. Week 9, the Texans travel to the Jets to take on the Aaron Rodgers-led Jets on Thursday Night Football. Terrible field, terrible day to play football on a Thursday. I think the Texans drop this one and go on a 3-game losing streak, unfortunately. I think the New York Jets are a pretty underrated team. I think if Rodgers is even, 80-75% of what he used to be in Green Bay, I think the Jets are going to be a very dangerous team. And honestly, I think they might even be the best team in that division. I think the Texans drop this one versus the Jets. Week 11, the Texans come back home to take on the Detroit Lions. I think this one's also going to be a very, very good game. But I also think the Texans drop this one. I think that middle portion of the Texans' schedule, that's Green Bay, Indy, New York Jets, Lions, followed by Dallas, I think that stretch right there is brutal. Typically, that point in the season is where most teams kind of struggle, I guess. You have injuries, fatigue starting to kick in, lingering injuries, players out because of the injuries, things like that. So I feel like this Detroit game is going to be a very good one. A real nail biter. I think Dan Campbell does some questionable things that end up working in favor of Detroit. Okay, week 11, the Texans travel to Dallas on Monday Night Football to take out the Dallas Cowboys. I think the Texans are a better team than the Dallas Cowboys. I think at this point the Texans are tired of losing. I mean, they've lost 4 in a row. At this point, they're sitting at an even 5-5 record. And once upon a time, they were sitting at 5-1. So the Texans are feeling like they have to kind of rebound. So they take out their frustrations and beat the Dallas Cowboys to get back above 500. Week 12, the Texans come back home to dismantle the Tennessee Titans at home. I don't think Tennessee stands a chance. Yeah, they added Ladarius Sneed, but he's not impressive. They lost Derrick Henry. Yeah, they have a decent wide receiver group, but Mr. Happy Feet himself, Will Levis, it's not impressive. I think the Texans easily take care of Tennessee. Tennessee fired a very good head coach in Mike Vrabel, in my opinion, and hired a not very good head coach. So Tennessee is they're gonna get blown out in this game. Week 13, the Texans travel to Jacksonville, aka their second home, to sweep the Jaguars. The Texans are gonna sweep the Jaguars this year, and then they're gonna go into their Week 14 bye on a 3-game winning streak, back above 500. Chilling with a good 8-5 record with a tough 3-game stretch to kind of close out the season in a way. Week 15, the Texans are at home to take on the Miami Dolphins. At this point in time, yes, obviously, they got Jalen Waddle, they got Tyreek Hill. They have talent on that Dolphins team, but it's December. The Dolphins, they're not a good December team. They're not a good playoff team. I think the Texans take care of business at home against this high-power Miami Dolphins offense. And then Week 16, the Texans travel to Kansas City to take on the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City. Ooh, that's going to be a good one, man. But I do think the Texans get it done against Kansas City. I feel like at this point in the season, the Texans are battle tested. They went, through that brutal stage of playing the Packers, playing the Colts, the Jets, the Lions, the Cowboys, the Dolphins, kind of like in a congested part of the schedule. So I feel like at this point they're battle tested. They go up into Kansas City and they shot the Kansas City Chiefs. Week 17, the Texans come back home to take on the Baltimore Ravens, who, the Ravens eliminated the Texans last year from the playoffs. I think the Ravens take out the Texans. Could the Texans win? Absolutely, but I just feel like the Ravens are that bad matchup for the Texans, and I feel like the Ravens get the best out of the Texans in this one. And then week 18, the Texans blow out the Titans to, finish with an 11-6 record. Obviously, the Texans win the division. They go to the playoffs. What happens in the playoffs? Well, hopefully something that's never happened before. An AFC championship game, Super Bowl berth, Super Bowl win. That's where I'm hoping for. I do think the Texans are right there, but I also feel like this Texans season is kind of a learning season for the team. Learning season in a way that, last year the Texans obviously, they made the playoffs, they did some things, but this year it's a little bit different because now they're playing a first place schedule. They're playing all these very good teams, and now instead of the Texans being the team trying to go out there and prove themselves against all these other teams, now the script has flipped. Now all these other teams are coming at the Texans trying to prove themselves. So I feel like there's going to be a learning curve this season. There's going to be a learning season for the Texans, and I feel like they might make the AFC Championship game, but next year, 2025, I think it's when the real fun begins, when we start seeing Super Bowl rings on CJ Stroud's beautiful fingers. But yeah, those are my predictions for the Texans season. Comment down below your own predictions for the Texans seasons, and yeah, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.